Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridvaradhari Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridvaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridvaradhari Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Anandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Astotra Sata His Divine Grace Abhay Charana Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Transcendental Diaries Ki All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay. Yeah, so today we'll be discussing Transcendental Diaries by His Grace Hari Sori Prabhu. Yeah, this is such an amazing book. I've been reading it. This is actually His Grace Ramanujacharya Prabhu's copy. And when I go visit him once a week, I always request something. Sometimes he gives me some Diet Coca-Cola. Sometimes he gives me some sweet or something. But this time he gave me Transcendental Diaries. And it's been an amazing gift, and I really encourage all of you to read more deeply into it. You really can get to know Srila Prabhupada so much better through the eyes of his disciples, especially somebody like Hari Sori, who spent so much time with Srila Prabhupada. So another suggestion, humble suggestion, when you come to these classes, it's really nice to have the copy of the book. You can find it online. There's a PDF, and it really enriches the experience when you can actually read along with. Sometimes the mind is chanchala, and we miss some of the important points. So the blessings and mercy of all the Vaishnavas, I will try and say something about the Transcendental Diaries. Okay. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksur Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. December 6, 1975. Early this morning, Prabhupada sent for the temple managers and angrily chastised them because we have spent 50 lakhs of rupees to build such a big temple and guest house, yet he cannot even get hot water in the cold season. The past few mornings, the water has been so cold that he couldn't even brush his teeth. One after another, Gopal Krsna, Akshayananda Swami, Gunarnava, Dhananjaya were called. No one seemed to want to take responsibility. Srila Prabhupada demanded to know why. Whenever they offered a feeble excuse or explanation, he abruptly cut them off. It was clear. He wanted to hear a plan for rectifying the mistakes, not excuses. Prabhupada called for Surabhi Das, the Dutch devotee and architect who was responsible for supervising the construction and design of the project. But he could not be found. This only increased Prabhupada's exasperation. Holding Surabhi responsible for the mistake, he sharply rebuked him in his absence. So I wrote a few points yesterday, not yesterday, the day before, about this topic of excuses. So we see here in the beginning of the Vrindavan expansion of ISKCON, Prabhupada really wanted this to be a very successful thing in Vrindavan, that the Westerners would come and build this magnificent temple, and it was a wonderful temple that was built. But Prabhupada was very concerned that it wasn't going to be maintained. He was concerned that there were things missing. Sometimes in our service, when we're executing something, we've been given some responsibility. It's very easy to start something, but to actually make sure that everything is going well, everything is going to be maintained, that's where the difficulty comes in. It's very easy. In the beginning of anything, any new endeavor, naturally one has some excitement about it. You start high school and it's very exciting, and after about 3 months, 2 months, 1 week, you feel that you're over this, you want to get out. I know I felt that way about high school. I don't know about everyone else, but yeah, that's what it's like. We feel very excited in the beginning to start something, but to actually carry it out, that's where the difficulty comes in. And that's where Srila Prabhupada was very worried that the devotees would not take this very, very seriously. The next point is, Srila Prabhupada is apparently becoming angrier. So, we hear in Bhagavad Gita that the qualities of the demoniac is anger, krodha. That's one of the qualities. And so sometimes it might be bewildering for a new devotee coming into the temple to see, devotees get angry, not just devotees, the spiritual master who is supposed to be the most elevated, becoming angry. I remember just before I was going to move into Sri Sri Radhanath, when I was in Port Elizabeth, His Grace Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, Patita Pavan Prabhu's brother, he was talking to me, about the temple. And he was saying that when he was going to move into the temple, he was thinking, everyone's going to be like a peaceful Buddhist, just sitting and meditating. And when he came into the temple environment, then he got a shock, because we all have personalities. We're not impersonal. Everybody has a way of expressing the kind of idea of temple life, even for myself, I was thinking when I was going to come to the temple, everybody was just gonna kind of be absorbed in chanting Hare Krishna, walking around the moat, sitting, doing japa. But we're rough diamonds. We have coverings and we have conditioning, and that's the nature of this material world. Seeing past that in the devotee, seeing past the externals, and actually what's behind, this is very important. So with the spiritual master, when he's showing anger, apparent anger towards us, then it's never coming from a place of himself feeling discomforted. If you look at the nature of anger in the material world, anger, it's said in Bhagavad Gita that when lust arises in the heart and it is not satisfied, then it turns into anger. So from lust, anger arises. So with us, when we are in the temple and someone doesn't save us some of Jaya's special soup, and we miss out on it, then we get pretty angry at, I was doing this and this service and nobody wanted to save me some soup, and we become angry. And this is because of our lust. We are wanting something, that lust isn't fulfilled, and therefore we get angry. But with the spiritual master, he has no lust. His anger is out of love. His anger is not out of a place of himself being discomforted, but Krishna and the devotee being discomforted. Because what happens if, for instance, in this case, we're building a temple, we're trying to maintain a temple, in Vrindavan. Prabhupada is given this task, and the disciples, they can't maintain it. What happens to the sadhana? What happens to the mentality of the disciples? What happens to the future of the mission? So when Prabhupada is showing anger here, he's showing compassion for all the future devotees. Now we have many devotees who are going to Vrindavan. I pray that all of us will be in Vrindavan sometime very soon. And it's possible because Prabhupada was very, paka on getting things done. And that's why this mission is still standing today. Because of this attitude of wanting to maintain, wanting to keep things going. So that's another point, that the spiritual master's anger is never from a place of him feeling unsatisfied due to his own sense gratification, due to his own shortcomings or whatever. It's due to the shortcomings of others and how that affects their service and the enjoyment of Krishna. The next point was excuses. Naturally, we have this knee-jerk reaction. Whenever somebody chastises us, we have a want to, make sure that it wasn't, take the blame off of ourselves, We try and give something, oh no, I was doing this, oh no, I was doing that. Without even thinking about why you actually did something, you already give an excuse. This is the nature of it's the conditioned nature. Without even thinking about it, as soon as somebody says something to you, oh, why didn't you put the Guru Puja petals out on time? And oh no, I was doing this, oh no, I was doing that, But actually, the reason you didn't put it out was because you forgot, plain and simple. But immediately, without even thinking about, why did I actually do that? You want to give an excuse. And Prabhupada wasn't happy with this. He didn't want excuses, he wanted rectification. So for instance, with the Guru Puja petals, I'm sorry Prabhu, next time I'll make it a point within my mind that I'm going to put these petals out on time. And this is the nature of devotee, not wanting to give excuses, but wanting to always better themselves. And this is what Prabhupada is cultivating. Let's continue. When the devotees assured him that the problem would be fixed immediately, Prabhupada's mood changed. As quickly as it had arisen, his anger disappeared. As our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada is training us in every aspect of devotional service. His praise and criticism are never unreasonable or excessive, but he always intends to push us forward in our spiritual progress. He never expects us to be conscientious, as attention to details of our service is a practical manifestation of our seriousness and sincerity. So just on that point, something that His Grace Rup Damodar Prabhu told me very early on when I came to the temple, and I started doing some, Pujari backup deity service. He mentioned that devotion is in the detail. So when you take, steps to make sure that everything is perfect, that shows devotion. That shows that you care about something. The less you care about something, the more you're just trying to get it done. And this sometimes creeps into our devotional service. Sometimes we're doing something and, we're just thinking about, when am I going to take prasadam? When am I going to go to Guru Puja and enjoy the dancing and chanting? When am I going to do this and that? It's out of our own, it's out of our own, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'm very easily distracted when the phones ring. It's praise and criticism. Yeah, when we're rushed to do things, when we're in a rush to kind of get things done, then it shows that there's some lack of devotion. There's some lack of wanting to do something properly for Krishna. I mean, in Vrindavan, the pastimes are eternal there. So the gopis have, a night of Rama to dance with Krishna. So this nature to be, or this habit or mindset that we should be fixed in whatever we're doing and do it to the best of our ability, paying attention to the details. This is very important. How will you dance with Krishna for a night of Brahma? How will you spend a day of Brahma dancing with playing with the cowherd boys if you can't maintain 6 hours of service, 5 hours of service without becoming disturbed? So it's very important that we become very focused, very attached, and attached to the details of our service. Okay. He does not like to hear excuses for tasks undone. He loathes the bureaucratic mentality that in the West we call passing the buck. He told us that the British Raj had introduced this mentality and it has crippled India. He is determined to see that it not get a footing in ISKCON. I ask you to do something, you ask him, he asks another, and you go away and forget. Business finished, simply bureaucracy. If I ask you to do something, it is your responsibility, not his. Even if you give it to somebody else, you have to see that it is properly completed. Despite his criticism of the management over the hot water incident, Prabhupada is very pleased with the service of Surabha and the other devotees. More than once he has asked me during the massage what I thought of the guest house and the temple. When I responded with appreciation, he looked over at the building and said, "Yes, I think he has done very nicely. There is no such a building anywhere." But he is determined not to allow us to become complacent. Now the facility has to be maintained and managed efficiently. Srila Prabhupada is personally showing us how to do it as a representative of Krishna. He wants to make sure that whatever resources Lord Krishna has provided are used correctly without waste. And he's constantly urging us to develop the same sense of responsibility. Yeah, so again, this topic of maintaining, of keeping things going, Prabhupada is emphasizing. He's saying how this has crippled India. This, this Western mentality of not wanting to do something, but to just give it over to somebody else, pass the service over to somebody else, and then pass the blame over to somebody else when it's done, when it's not done. This isn't the mood of a devotee. The devotee wants to facilitate other service, so yes, one can engage others in service, but then the second part of the responsibility is to make sure that things are done, to follow through, to follow up with the devotee. Make sure that whatever you've given over to somebody else to do, it gets done. Not in a condescending way. Oh, did you do this? Oh, did you do that? But in a very compassionate way. This thing, is it getting done in a mood of facilitating service, not in a mood of getting something done. Okay, let's move on. Prabhupada is especially fond of Prahlad Maharaj. his instruction because they are so pertinent to modern society. This morning's verse, in particular, emphasized the point that economic development is a waste of time. Srila Prabhupada delivered a crushingly negative appraisal of the contemporary society that considers progress only in economic terms. He said that no one can obtain more happiness than they are due by karma. Just as distress comes without working for it, so happiness also comes. Therefore, we should work only for spiritual advancement. He told us, the human life is meant for understanding Krishna. Instead of using the energy for understanding Krishna, they are spoiling the energy unnecessarily to earn money. This is modern civilization. The whole world, how they are spoiling their life unnecessarily. Prahlad Maharaj has begun with the words, Durlabhan Manusam Janma. This life is very important, and after many, many births, you have got it. Chanaka Pandit said, Ayushya Shana Ekopi Nalabhya Svarna Kotibi. Svarna means gold coins. Koti means 10 million, 10 millions. So suppose today is the 6th of December. Now it is 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, past. Can you bring it back? 7 o'clock, 6th December, 1975, again? No, it is gone forever. So just see the value. You cannot go back, even for a moment of your life, by paying millions and millions of dollars. How time is valuable, just calculate. Yeah, so this point of time being very valuable, this is very relevant to us. Finishing our rounds, reading some of Prabhupada's books, coming to the temple, doing some service, if you have to work, doing your work duties, family, eating responsibilities. The devotee has, this extra addition to their lives. The devotee has, rounds to chant. The materialist, he doesn't have so much to do. So naturally, we have to become very attentive to what we're giving our time to. If we aren't attentive to what we're giving our time to, we end up then being in this rushed mood that we were talking about earlier. So time management is very important for the devotee. As he surveyed the 80 or 90 young men and women who have come here to get the special blessings of serving in the holy Dham, he warned us to be attentive of our purpose. There is no guarantee that I'm going to take again a human form of life, but there is a little guarantee for the devotee. Guaranteed in this way, that if he unknowingly commits some mistake, then it is guaranteed. And if he knowingly commits a mistake, then he is going to be a cat or dog. This is the facility. If one purposefully commits mistake and sinful life, now I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I can do all sinful life. It will become counteracted. That rascal will be punished very much. Yeah, so this is the 7th offense to the holy name, committing sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. And we see, I was shocked when I read this because, when you come to Krishna consciousness, you start reading Bhagavad Gita. Then you see in Bhagavad Gita that it says that one who takes to this process is immediately saved from the greatest danger. So my sentiment was that I took up devotional service, I'm never going to animal life. And then later on there's devotees who are born as animals. So Prabhupada explains here that if we end up going into sinful life, purposefully, with motive, and we think that, just by chanting Hare Krishna will be alleviated, then we can take birth again as cats and dogs. And this is the greatest danger. Namnad balad yasya hi papa buddhi. I am living in Vrindavan. Oh, it is the Dham. So let me do all nonsense. It will be counteracted. There'll be these cats and dogs and monkeys in Vrindavan. Dhammaparad. Of course, Vrindavan's influence will be there, but at least one life, he has to become a hog and dog in Vrindavan. As you see, there are many dogs and hogs. But still, Vrindavan Dham is so powerful that next life he will get salvation, even if he has become a dog or hog. But that is not good. Why should we act in such a way that in Vrindavan Dham we shall commit sinful life and become a cat or dog? We should be careful. You simply dedicate your life to serve Mukunda. Krishna's another name is Mukunda. Mukha means liberation. Mukti. So Ananda, the Mukti Ananda, that is real Ananda, liberation. So our business is how to surrender fully unto the lotus feet of Mukunda. Mukunda Charanara Bhujam. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Giri Govardhan ki, Shri Gora Hari ki, Shri La Prabhupada ki. Mukunda Charana Bhujam, and fully engage in his service. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj says, don't try for anything else. So, somebody was in Vrindavan recently and they were mentioning, all the monkeys nowadays in Vrindavan. And, we shouldn't correlate that, ISKCON devotees, ISKCON has become so big now there's so many monkeys in Vrindavan. So we should be very careful, that we don't next life become monkeys in Vrindavan and give some bad name to ISKCON. Surrendering to the lotus feet of Mukunda. This is what Prabhupada is emphasizing here. The Mukti Ananda, the real Ananda, is that Ananda which is in the spiritual world. Don't try for anything else, Prahlad Maharaj says. Yeah. Okay, next. Prabhupada has given Harikesh a new service. He wants him to write an essay titled Experimental Knowledge, explaining the defects of modern science and presenting the scientific basis of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada has been personally coaching him, calling him in regularly to discuss points of logic. He told Harikesh not to criticize the modern science, not to criticize the modern science as such, but the misuse of it. Science should not be used as a tool to propagate atheistic theories, and false claims must be exposed. Modern scientists are challenging God, and now Prabhupada, as God's servant and representative, is challenging them. Inventions you can take credit for, but why claim to be God? December 7th, 1975. One of Srila Prabhupada's foremost desires is to develop a first-class Gurukul system. He was personally involved in development of the school in Dallas, ISKCON's first Gurukul, and now here. Recently, in Dallas, some difficulties have arisen in complying with the local Texas laws regarding dormitories. Jagadish Das, the GBC for the area, was forced to look for another facility that would conform to government standards. In a previous letter, Jagadisha sent Prabhupada some more information regarding the new site for the school in another city. Prabhupada approved the idea, but today another letter arrived retracting the proposal because of hostile reactions from the local residents. Jagadisha proposed that the school remain in Dallas and that they just build a new dormitory on the existing site. Prabhupada encouraged him to stay in Dallas, saying that from the beginning he had considered the facilities there to be ample. He is anxious to see the school firmly established and stable. He does not want the children's education to be disrupted. Here in Vrindavan, Bhagatji, who lives a few houses away from our ashram, arranged to purchase land for our Gurukul and gave 1 lakh rupees for building the school. Bhagatji has also come forward to help manage the temple. Pleased by his efforts, Prabhupada meets with him almost every day. On Radha Astami, during his last Vrindavan visit, Prabhupada laid the foundation stone for the Gurukul. Construction of the building on the land next to the temple has already begun. Now he is keenly following developments and regularly discussing the plans. One of Prabhupada's favorite quotes is, "Child is the father of man," meaning the future of the world lies with its young. Therefore, good training and education are essential for a peaceful population and trouble-free world. He often expresses his conviction and happiness that the movement he began, re-spiritualizing the world, will go on because the young people of your country have taken it up. So this is a very important point, that youth preaching, it's a very important thing. His Grace Radhesham Prabhu has done such a wonderful program in India, in the colleges, where they have, these sort of, I think they're called Krsna houses or something like that. And they have like, communities of devotee university students who become devotees. Most of these students, they become brahmacharis afterwards. His Grace Anukul Prabhu from Ujjain was telling me that Radhesham Prabhu's program, they take the top students from, what was it, MIT or not MIT, some like the Indian version of MIT in like one of the top universities. And he was saying that the temple is taking all of the top students from these universities, these top universities, and the companies are becoming very envious. These top Indian business companies, actually all around the world, they usually handpick the top students, and the ISKCON temples are actually taking these students. So the potency of Srila Prabhupada's books and writings, they were directed towards young people. So just by getting these books, by preaching a little bit about what Srila Prabhupada has given us, it becomes very simple to attract the minds of young people. We can see Prabhupada single-handedly, how many young people did he attract? Right? So we're currently doing a BYS program, and it's very encouraging. His Holiness Parthasarathi Maharaj said that, more important than Ratha Yatras, more important than temple worship or building temples, is the university preaching. So this is very important that we focus some energy and we support, the university preaching to young people. We encourage it when we see it happening. Give some support, because this is Prabhupada's desire. The young people, these are the future. He was very grateful that the young people have come to this movement. Who was it? His Grace Bindu Madhava Prabhu. I was at the Food for Life. He supplies the Food for Life, the biryani for our university project where we go and distribute. And some of the temple Matajis, they do the packing for this project. And Bindu Madhava Prabhu, he was telling me, this is amazing work that you guys are doing, because, we're getting very old now. So somebody has to carry this movement on after we leave. And it's daunting, but it's the reality. I think His Grace Burijan Prabhu mentioned that this next few years is going to be the decade of tears, when many of our spiritual leaders, many of the people who are very prominent in our movement, holding it up, they might soon, they'll soon leave this world. And this is the reality, so we need to make sure that the next generation is being cultivated. It's very important. In this respect, the young Prahlad Maharaj's instructions are particularly important for us. The morning Srimad Bhagavatam verse 7.6.5 spoke precisely on this theme, taking full advantage of one's youth for spiritual attainment. The translation was, "For this reason, a person who is fully competent to distinguish wrong and right while keeping himself in the material existence, bhavam ashrita, must endeavor for achieving the highest goal of life, so long as the body is stout and strong, and is not embarrassed by the dwindling condition of life." Srila Prabhupada commented, "Nobody wants to become an old man, especially in this winter season. It is very difficult for old men. So you have to accept jara and vyadhi. Nobody can escape disease. When I am diseased, there is great struggle. How to cure myself, go to the doctor, take good medicine, and so on. But we cannot check the diseased condition. Similarly, we cannot check our old age, cannot check our birth, death. Therefore, here it is said, kushala. Kushala means if you want actual benefit, because this kind of struggle has not given you any benefit, tato yateta, then you should endeavor for this. What is that? Shemaya, for your ultimate benefit. And how long? Sariram, Purusham, Yavan, na vipadeta pushkalam. So long you are stout and strong, you should try how to become free from this bondage of birth and death, old age and disease. Not that you keep this business set aside. When we shall get old, then we shall chant Hare Krishna and become Krishna consciousness. That is not the meaning. Immediately. Prahlad Maharaj said that from the very beginning of life, when Kumara, a small child, boy, from that age one should begin Bhagavat life or Krishna consciousness. That is called brahmachari. To teach brahmacharya from the beginning of life, and when you are young, then you should work with more vigor and intelligence. At that time, brain is very nice. Young man has got all the facilities. The machine is strong. This is a machine. So old machine cannot so work. So it is a great fortune for the young boys and girls of Europe and America that in this young life they are cultivating Krishna consciousness. It is very good fortune. There is a quality about Srila Prabhupada that makes him utterly appealing to everyone. He relates perfectly to his youthful disciples, although materially speaking, we are 2 or 3 generations apart. Despite the vast difference between our cultural background and spiritual understanding, there are no barriers between us. He is sympathetic, and he is seemingly he has seemingly perfect empathy with us. He is able to relate to us in such a wonderful way. How he is able to relate to us in such a wonderful way was revealed soon after the class. So, Prabhupada, the way that he related, with these young disciples, even though he was much older, it was as if they were friends. He was very empathetic for their situation, and this is a quality that comes naturally when one begins to realize oneself as a spirit soul. The more that we're on the bodily concept of life, the more we'll tend to see bodily defects or even temporary defects, within the mind, intelligence, gross body of devotees. But as we're progressing in Krishna consciousness, we start seeing less the bodily condition. We start seeing less the temporary changes and fluctuations of the mind. We start seeing less the faults in others' intelligence. We start seeing more that this is a spirit soul, and this is somebody that I can relate to on this deeper level. As soon as we start seeing devotees in terms of their bodily concept, as soon as we start seeing devotees in terms of certain activities that they might or might not engage in, we become bewildered by these things. As soon as we start seeing these things, then the offensive mentality inevitably will creep in. So it's very important that we practice very strongly, and we note, that how my Krishna consciousness is developing is directly correlated to how my dealings with devotees are. This is a very important thing to note. If your dealings with devotees are becoming skewed, it's something that we have to look at within our sadhana. We were talking in his sitting room about growing old, and at one moment, Prabhupada got up from his desk. His eyes shone brightly, and he said simply and convincingly, "I am not an old man. I will never grow old." We laughed. Prabhupada is a self-realized soul. How he does not identify with his body, and he does not see us as material entities either. He relates to us as one spirit soul relates to another. We are all meant to serve the Supreme. In that sense, he does not perceive himself as superior to us. Yet, he always keeps the formal guru and disciple relationship intact. Prabhupada's humble service is to bring us back to Krishna, and our humble service to Krishna is to serve Srila Prabhupada. So, that's a nice point. Even though we do relate on the level of spirit souls with each other, still there is some formality that we keep due to certain bodily conditionings, because we are in this conditioned state. So guru-disciple relationship is very formal. Relationship between man and woman is very formal. So we keep these kind of regulations in, just as we are growing in the stage of sadhana bhakti. For Prabhupada, he is completely transcendental. He's seeing everybody in their constitutional position. He knows, he can see, this person is this such and such gopi, this person is such and such saki, this person is such and such in the spiritual world. Spiritual master knows, but he still keeps the relationship formal because he understands we're in the conditioned state. One other point, and it's very nice to see Prabhupada's humor. in these intimate moments. We should relish any association that we get with, especially senior devotees, when they sometimes take a light mood with us. Sometimes they tease us or something. Or we should never brush these off. We should really hanker for these experiences with the devotees, especially the senior devotees. I can imagine how much, we actually hear very often from the Prabhupada disciples how difficult it was when Prabhupada left the world. It was extremely painful for them because they had these experiences with Prabhupada, and they relished them. And when Prabhupada left, it was like a daunting reality. I won't be able to have these experiences anytime soon. So this, Prabhupada, getting all excited. I'm not an old man. I will never grow old. It's very nice to see, and it's something very sweet that Hari Sori is sharing with us. Prabhupada derives great inspiration from the life of Prahlad Maharaj, and he often refers to his exemplary behavior when preaching. A recent letter from Yogesh Chandra Das requested Prabhupada's blessing for a party of 8 men who are to collect funds for the Mayapur temple. You always have my blessings, Prabhupada replied. The father always wishes that the son may be more successful than himself. This is the spiritual conception. If one is doing well, then materialistic persons become envious and try to check his progress. This was actually so with Prahlad Maharaj. He was only 5 years old. He was preaching Krishna consciousness to his school friends, and the father, Hiranyakashipu, became so envious that he attempted to kill his 5-year-old son in so many ways. Krishna consciousness is just the opposite. If somebody is doing well, then the attitude of the devotee is to give him all facility to go on and improve more and more. So it's interesting to see how Srila Prabhupada, he was translating this 7th canto, the pastimes of Sri Prahlad Maharaj. And you can see how his mood, it becomes absorbed in the scripture. It becomes absorbed in what he's studying. Because when Srila Prabhupada is translating the scriptures, writing his purports, he's not only giving out, he's not only writing something, he's relishing the works of Srimad Bhagavatam, of Shukadev Goswami, he's relishing the commentaries of the previous acharyas. And we can see how he imbibes the mood then that he gets from reading the books. It's not just that we, read the book and then we carry on. When we're reading, the way to, actively get, ras out, to get taste out of reading, is to practically apply the principles within your own life. So when you're reading, this month of Kartik, it's good to read Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada did that special series on Nectar of Devotion in the month of Kartik, when I think it was the first time we went to Vrindavan. So, for instance, you're reading Nectar of Devotion, and you're hearing about, the Bhakti Rasam Rita Sindhu, the ocean of devotion. You're hearing about the ras and how, we're supposed to develop, this taste for Krishna consciousness. We're supposed to start noticing, how there's a difference between the material rasas that we're engaging in and the transcendental rasas. And then we can note, in our day-to-day lives, when taking prasadam, this isn't just a mundane thing. I'm relishing the taste of Krishna, of Krishna's saliva on this prasadam. So when we're reading these books, we should take certain aspects and try and incorporate it in our lives. If not incorporate it, just try and see through the eyes. Seeing through the eyes of sadhu, sees through the eyes of Shastra. Anyone know that verse? Shastra Chakshus, something like that. Ganga, you know it? Okay. Anyway, that verse that speaks about the sadhu who sees through the eyes of Shastra. So just as these glasses, they help us to see more clearly. When we imbibe Shastra, when we start studying Shastra with the intent of seeing more clearly, Om Agyanti Mirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militamyana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. In Srila Prabhupada's books, when we read these books and when we start seeing through the eyes of the scripture, through the eyes of what Srila Prabhupada has given us, then our vision becomes clear. The cataract condition of the eyes becomes very clear. And naturally then we can start seeing things very clearly. We can get out of this darkness of ignorance that is so deeply engraved within us. So this is the potency of reading, and we can see Srila Prabhupada's example. Even the Gurukul, he's translating Prahlad Maharaj's part of Bhagavatam, and simultaneously he's developing the Gurukul project and speaking about how young people should develop. And this is what Prahlad was doing. He was preaching to the students. So it's amazing how these things line up. You read this book, and it's not like a biography, like a normal biography. It takes me back to my early days when I was really young. I would read a lot of novels. I was really into reading novels, and I really get absorbed in the story and how it turns and twists. But these are all material rasas. These turns and twists in the novels, they're just speculations, concoctions that have been put together. But it's like a novel, and you think, how is it that somebody's life, how is it that somebody's journey, how is it that ISKCON, this movement that we're in right now, it's like having all these turns and twists and intricate details and these moments of intimacy with Srila Prabhupada, and it makes you excited about spiritual life. This is what devotional life can be. If we really get into it, our life can become like a novel. The story of the devotee and Krishna and Guru, and it becomes very exciting, just like in this book. So we should endeavor for cultivating that mood. Then another point that Prabhupada was mentioning is how the spiritual master, he always gives his blessings to the disciple. So sometimes we ask the spiritual master to give us some benediction. Please give me your blessings that I can do this. Please give me your blessings that I can do that. In one sense, it's very important to really seek out the blessings of the spiritual master, but we should always note that the spiritual master's blessings are never separated from us. Naturally, the spiritual master, as Prabhupada was saying, like the father wants the son to do better than himself. So when we have a spiritual master, we have a spiritual father, and he naturally wants us to do better than ourselves. So having this deep conviction, this deep faith in Krishna, in spiritual master, that the blessings are there is also important, along with hankering for the blessings. Because the spiritual master, as long as you're following the instructions, his blessings are automatically there. And Prabhupada is saying to these 8 devotees who are going to build or collect funds to build the Mayapur temple, you always have my blessings. And Prabhupada would sign at the bottom of his letters, you guys, you're ever well wisher. This is Prabhupada's mood. Then another point, Prabhupada mentions in mundane life, it's about, like for instance with Hiranyakashipu, he sees somebody else doing well, and then he wants to put the person down. And he wants to give some curse. Hiranyakashipu, the things that he put Prahlad Maharaj through, extraordinary. And this is the nature of material society. But for the devotee, for one in Krishna consciousness, the nature is not to want to put others down, but to, again, facilitate other service. This is the mood of Srimati Radharani. Even though she is the topmost servant of Krishna, even though she is the one that she knows, I give the most pleasure to Krishna, she is the sum and substance of all good fortune, and still she engages all these other gopis, she engages all these other devotees in the service of Krishna. She takes them and says, you be alone with Krishna, you try and please Krishna. So this is the mood of Srimati Radharani, that I'm trying to facilitate somebody else's service. And it's very easy to get into the mood of wanting to facilitate our own service above other services. And when this mood creeps in, that my service is more important, it's very easy to get into it. You start doing some important service. Maybe you become temple president, maybe you become temple commander, and you kind of feel, things are depending on me. I'm being depended on by so many people, so I have to make sure that my things are done. So the nature then comes in. Okay, no, I should be served prasadam. I shouldn't serve out prasadam. I have more important things to do. I don't have to come for Guru Puja. I have more important things to do. This tendency will come in. I don't have to do this. I have more important things. I have service for Krishna. I'm serving Krishna so nicely, so I should be served by others. But actually the mood of the devotee, the more you advance, the more you go up. Swarup Damodar Prabhu mentioned that when he was a young brahmachari, the idea was that devotional service is kind of like a corporate ladder. We're aiming to climb up the ladder of devotional service. Now I'm such and such bhakta, then I'll get initiated, then I'll get Brahman initiation, then I'll start serving in the deity department, then I'll become head pujari, then I'll become brahmachari leader, then I'll become head of the kitchen. This isn't the mood. This isn't what devotional service is. Devotional service is das anudas, becoming the servant of the servant, facilitating other service as much as possible. When we see a devotee is wanting to do some program, they're looking for some donation for some petrol to go to a program. No, Prabhu, you should go collect yourself. This is the nature. You need to become purified. Go and collect for your own program. Radhesham Prabhu gives the example. One time there was a temple manager, and he was in charge of the cars. Like Jai Prabhu was in charge of the cars, the vehicles. And this one brahmachari, he was doing so many programs. He was going out, and he was really getting people engaged in service. And he wanted to take sweet rice one day to a program, a bucket of sweet rice. So in India they had these really like stable cars, but they also had the very the very bumpy cars, the ones that they're very light. You can feel the road when you're driving. And so there were these stable cars available, but this person in charge of the facility for the cars, he told this brahmachari, "No, why do you want that car? There's all these cars available. Why do you want to take that one? No, Prabhu, for your purification, you must take that car. This is for your sense gratification that you want to drive a nice car." So sometimes when we get into a position of having some power, we get into a position of having some responsibility. It's very easy to get into the mood that I am now the doer, I am the controller. But this isn't the mood that Prabhupada is mentioning here. He's saying that we should endeavor to try and facilitate as much as possible other service. Yeah. So this is a very important mood to imbibe. We're good for time now. Any comments, corrections? Anyone? Virabhadra Prabhu? Vidhira Bhavan, anything? Okay, that's okay. We can finish early. I'm sure Jaya is already waiting eagerly to serve us some of his famous soup. Transcendental Diaries ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, His Grace Hari Sori Prabhu ki. Jaya. Bo.